So this past year has been filled with a few makeovers, some thrift hauls, and a never-ending appreciation for thrifting. Now, even in my spare moments, when I can, I'm thrifting. It's always worth a look, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes at a time, even if I don't walk away with anything. So on those days when there is no video, there might be a find or two you haven't seen. So today we will be looking at a lot of my thrift obsessions. We will rate these going down the list to my absolute favorites. So here are 10 thrift finds I'm loving right now. Number 10. Pottery is something I absolutely love to style with. Doesn't matter if it's a valuable vintage one or a beginner class crafted one. In general, it feels like it's just a great way to add uniqueness to a space, especially if you do find those pottery class ones. And personally, the asymmetrical and sometimes wonky pieces tend to be my favorites. So when I saw this one, I was quite drawn to it. Perhaps it's the comically large handles, or the fact that it just has a very different feel and style to the items that I see these days. But with a little DIY love and some simple styling, this one can really stand out. And even at $7, it's still a better price than a lot of the things that you see in stores these days. Number 9. So wood in general is an absolute must in my home. Whether it's furniture or just small decor pieces, I almost always have at least one wood item in a thrift haul. And carved wood pieces are no exception. Though it used to only be carved wooden boxes that I would find at the thrift store, I've had a few cases where I found hand-carved wooden frames, and I've been loving this look. I found that it actually levels up your standard gallery wall when you use them mixed among very different sizes and shapes of other frames. So this one I found during a quick trip to the thrift store where I literally only had minutes to look through, but thankfully in my quick look through of the store, this one firmly stood out. Now the fact that this is a small mirror is already cute enough, but I think with the bright artwork, this frame will really be the star wherever I put it. And at $10, while it wasn't the cheapest price, the right frame on a great art piece almost seems invaluable to me. Number 8. Oil lamps have been somewhat a vintage staple in my home. My first ever oil lamp was actually a fully functional one I received as a gift, and I have never looked back since. Though I find the joy in them, even if they just serve as decor, finding ones that are in working condition are even better. So when I found this one, there was no question as to whether I was going to pick it up. The only question was how much. And I'm not gonna lie, $8 felt a little steep, but I also didn't go back and forth on this piece like I usually do when I don't agree with the price. It's cute, it's petite, and the timeless floral pattern is just the cherry on top. So while this might not be the focal point on a shelf due to its size, it still shines and gives shine to other pieces around it. Number 7. So believe it or not, there was a time where I avoided glass pieces like the plague. I know. I really found them to be boring, and their designs were quite uninspiring. To me, everything just looked the same. But it turns out, I was really just looking at the wrong types of glass pieces. Because when I first started going to the thrift store and found ornate glass and crystal pieces, everything changed. And this switch could be due to the trend shift, but they have a lot more versatility than I imagined. From glassware to candy dishes and vases, it's been another layer of designing that I really missed out on. And detailing is ideal, but even the simple designs like this one are still great. In fact, I really love this one because of its good balance between the two. And glass pieces are fairly easy to find, but if I'm looking for something like a vase, even an old wine decanter can be repurposed in such a way. So this one was $5, which is a fair price in my opinion. So the fact that I've been loving this piece really shows how much my design style has evolved over the years. Number 6. Though I say I search for artwork every time I go thrifting, sometimes a good frame is the next best thing. These days, it is so easy to buy or download vintage prints for your home, so sometimes a frame is all you really need. And while I don't buy vintage prints often, I prefer to find art from old thrifted art books, especially if they're already from a book that has ripped or missing pages. It's a great way to give second use to it, and as an added bonus, you'd probably see that piece more often around in your house than you would if it was just stored on a bookshelf. So this one I found at a flea market for $5. I remember this day in particular because I didn't leave with much, because usually it's like multiple trips to the car. But when I found this one, it was only one of 3 items that I found that day. So maybe that's why I value it more. And I'm sold on ornate frames in general and will look for them everywhere I go. In the past, I used to stay away from smaller framed items, but I found the variation looks great, especially in gallery walls. Yeah, perhaps that's not the sole reason to thrift for them, but they do help with filling out the blemishes. And this one I actually might want to change the picture. Style-wise, I'm not sure where I'm leaning, but I'm definitely open to the possibilities with this one. Number 5. Okay, for this one, I think it's going to be divided. Either you'll love it or you'll hate it. Clearly, I'm in the love camp because it is on my list, but there are a lot of reasons why I'm loving this piece right now. For one, the uniqueness, again, is something really to behold. Obviously, the bubble wrap looking vase isn't necessarily new, and actually, it's still a little trendy these days. But this one feels like it was the first ever scrap version of an idea that first came on the market. Weird to say that I like the prototype look of this piece, but it's the truth. Secondly, this piece has all the texture I could ever want. I truly love it. Now, I definitely think I'll make this one a solid color, but other than that, I have no notes. This one is truly a love it or leave it piece, and for me, it's all love. Number 4. So anything brass, and I'm pretty much sold on it. But it being a cute lamp too? Now that's a winning combination. That's how I literally feel about this lamp. Now this is an item that was gifted, and for the longest time I wasn't using it because I thought it took a very particular light bulb. To my surprise though, it only takes a standard chandelier bulb. So once I learned that, this lamp has been featured in just about everywhere in my house. It started downstairs, moved to the living room, and I even moved it to my room as a bedside lamp. Now that's the problem with items that you really love. When you make over a room, you tend to want to move your best items in it to help it look even better. So I sort of did the same thing with this lamp. I love its shape. I love the fact that it's a lamp that looks like a flower. I love everything about it. And the fact that it's a unique lamp to me is just icing on the cake. Probably one of my favorite vintage gifts to date. So I have to thank the person who gave it to me. This is probably something I wouldn't have stumbled upon myself, and the fact that this person was thinking of me when they saw it means so much. Number 3. So if you have Pinterest, you might be like me and save pictures of things you like. In my case, it's not really recipes, it's more vintage and antique things. So one picture I saved was this beautiful styling of a spice rack. Everything about it was something I wish I could have. And honestly, finding a spice rack was probably like a pie in the sky dream. I didn't think it was something I'd stumble upon, especially in the thrift store, my thrift stores in my area. Cut to the day at the end of fall though, when I'm driving around and I stumble across a yard sale. Honestly, I was on my way to the thrift store, but I decided to stop because I actually had cash on hand. The sheer excitement when I picked this up was probably laughable. And it also happened to be while I was in a friendly competition with another shopper who had a keen eye for vintage stuff too. She found some great items, but I am so glad that I walked away with this for only $5. Now it's a little smaller than the inspo picture, but still 100% of what I hope to find. The wood spice rack is cute on its own, but the vintage style of the bottles and the fact that they even still have some of the labels on it is perfection. Now, just to be clear, I won't be using these spices, so no worries there. Right now, this is solely for decor aesthetics, but eventually they will all be thoroughly cleaned and replaced. And when I do, it will be a fun challenge to recreate this look. Number 2. So if you have been watching my thrifting home makeovers, you'll probably notice that I'm stuck squarely in my moody vintage cottage era. And this picture really fits the style perfectly. I have been loving these oversaturated colors on these types of pieces lately. Why? I'm not sure, but it reminds me of overexposed pictures from an old film roll. So maybe that's a vibe to me, I guess? But from the flowers to the trees, and of course the cottage, because who wouldn't want to live in that cottage? It is such a lovely piece that I had to make it work in my house. And I did almost walk away from this piece because of this price. Like seriously, I walked around for 20 minutes with this in my cart, weighing the pros and cons of getting this because the cost of it seemed like a lot. It was $34.99. Clearly, this thrift store knows that art pieces are my kryptonite. Spend $34 on a coffee table? Probably not. Spend $34.99 on a vintage wall art piece? Why not? So seeing it now up on my wall in my home, do I regret that decision? Absolutely not. So needless to say, this one is ranked high on my list, and that is why it is at number 2. Number 1. Okay, when I say I knew this picture would be at number 1 no matter what else I put on this list or what it consisted of, it is literally because I have tried to put this picture in every single makeover I have done recently. And I mean that when I say that, because I love this picture so much. But after multiple internal arguments with myself, I'm firmly taking a stance on leaving this in the living room. For starters, this picture works great with bringing the vintage element to my otherwise lackluster upstairs living room. But secondly, this living room has been a challenge to decorate. So I'm switching gears and I'm going to use a piece I love to help lead me in a better direction with this makeover. And trust me, this room needs a lot of work. Like I had empty frames sitting on the wall for longer than I care to admit. And when I decorated for this past holiday season, I added new pictures, but again, I'm not sold on this arrangement either. So I might just bring it back down to like nothing and start with this one as the focal piece. But hey, at least this is a step up from what I originally had. So thank you, Forest Picture, for providing me with a different direction and really highlighting some of the best reasons to thrift, because at $13.50, it was definitely worth the price. So that is it for all the thrift items that I'm loving right now. As time goes on, I'm sure there will be new finds that will pique my interest too. But it's times like these where I realize there's a lot to be valued in furnishing your homes with secondhand finds. And with that, I'll say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.